Distinguished guests, friends, can I firstly say how delighted I am to be here today and to be given the honour by the Board of Interfaith Scotland of delivering the annual Interfaith Lecture 2025. This prestigious lecture has been delivered by many outstanding individuals over the years, including Professor Jason Leach, who was Scotland's National Clinical Director during the COVID pandemic, Reverend Cathy Galloway, a much-loved activist, writer, poet and chair of the Iona community, who sadly passed away this year. Michael Haynes, OBE, founder of Hope Not Hate and Global Acts of Unity, whose brother was killed by ISIS. Zara Mohammed, the first female, youngest ever, and Scottish, Secretary-General of the Muslim Council of Britain, and Charandeep Singh, Deputy Chief Executive of the Scottish Chambers of Commerce, who's been honoured as the Pride of Scotland and Man of the Year for his service to charity. And this is to name but a few. So I am in good company, though somewhat humbled by the achievements of my predecessors. It's also meaningfully poignant to be delivering this lecture on the week of my retirement as Director of Interfaith Scotland. And I know in the core of my being what a privilege it has been to serve in this position. And I wish Francis Hume, who'll be standing in as interim director, as much joy as I have had. So now to the title of my lecture, The Ghosts of Interfaith, Past, Present and Future. Initially, the title was meant to be just a bit of fun as we approach the Christmas season. Seemingly, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is the most famous Christmas story ever. And I like the idea that the title would allow me to share thoughts on the past, the present and the future of interfaith in Scotland and beyond. However, I discovered that the three ghosts in the Christmas Carol were deeply symbolic, and the symbolism lends itself quite profoundly to my interfaith journey and to the story of interfaith relations more generally. The three ghosts or spirits symbolise: the ghost of Christmas past symbolises memory and reflection. The ghosts of Christmas present symbolises shared humanity and present responsibility. And the ghosts of Christmas future symbolises the consequences of our present actions. So let me begin with the ghost of interfaith past, memory and reflection. Of course, the story of interfaith relations in Scotland began way before me, but in this lecture it's an opportunity to share some personal reflections, so I ask your indulgence as I invite you to initially get up close and personal. In 2002, I had just returned from 5 years on the Pacific island of Samoa, doing my PhD on religion and gender. Our family arrived back from the sunny, warm and vibrant Pacific to a freezing day in Glasgow on the 2nd of January 2002. We'd come home to take care of Nick's dad, who had sadly had a stroke. It was a challenging time as we navigated our return and the need to find work and a home. During my time in Samoa, I'd been deeply moved by spending most of my time in the diverse religious communities of that island, including time with the Indigenous healers. And I knew that my path was not going to be in academia, but working in communities. Nick, my husband, always the optimist, said, "I think you've made yourself unemployable. Who in Scotland is going to want an academic community worker with experience in Pacific Island culture?" But I began to search, ever hopeful that the ideal job would emerge. Then in April 2002, a very significant letter was sent to the religious leaders of the world by the governing body of my own faith, the Baha'i faith, by the Universal House of Justice. This lengthy letter to the world's religious leaders explicitly mentioned interfaith relations. So I'm going to quote just a short section of that because it did have a huge impact on me. The Baha'i community has been a vigorous promoter of interfaith activities from the time of their inception. Apart from cherished associations that these activities create, Baha'is see in the struggle of diverse religions to draw closer together a response to the divine will for a human race that is entering on its collective maturity. The members of our community will continue to assist in every way we can. However, this letter also stated that with every day that passes, danger grows that the rising fires of religious prejudice will ignite a world conflagration, the consequences of which are unthinkable. Such a danger civil government unaided cannot overcome, nor should we delude ourselves that appeals for mutual tolerance can alone hope to extinguish animosities that claim to possess divine sanction. The crisis calls on religious leadership for a break with the past, as decisive as those that opened the way for society to address equally corrosive prejudices of race, gender, and nation. Whatever justification exists for exercising influence in matters of conscience lies in serving the well-being of mankind. In fact, the well-being of humankind. The well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable, Baha'u'llah urges, unless and until its unity is firmly established. I loved that letter, and I felt a calling to further reignite my interest in interfaith dialogue. I'd been very involved in the 1990s while at university in Aberdeen. Then that same month, April 2002, a dear friend, Alec Reend, phoned me up, told me there was a job going for a development officer to work for the then Scottish Interfaith Council, and might I be interested? Well, needless to say, I was. I applied, got the job, and started in September 2002. And I guess you could say the rest is history. But I want to share now the very first event that I was asked to attend by the then director of the Scottish Interfaith Council, Sister Isabel Smythe, who many of you will know. That first meeting was actually the first meeting of the Scottish Religious Leaders Forum. Now remember, I had just read this letter addressed to religious leaders of the world. It had been called by the moderator of the Church of Scotland and the Primus of the Episcopal Church in response to the aftermath of 9/11. This was exactly 1 year later. The meeting was held in Scottish Church's House, Dunblane, and was a historical moment and an absolute privilege to be there. Now this may be a memory, and a wonderful memory, but what is my reflection on that memory? The ghost of Christmas past, memory and reflection. Firstly, it was significant that it was called because of 9/11. But what was more significant was that there was a deep commitment at that meeting to build a connected, cohesive Scotland together. And there was a recognition that religious leaders had a role to play in this. Everyone present was keen not to allow hatred to fester, not to allow division and fear to tear Scotland apart. And as I reflect on this first meeting, I'm filled with hope when I recognise that twice a year since that very first meeting, the Scottish Religious Leaders Forum has faithfully met and contributed to a cohesive Scotland. 2022 was the 20th anniversary of that first meeting, and in September of that year, 44 religious leaders and representatives met on the island of Iona to write a declaration of continuing commitment, and they spent 3 days together writing that declaration. It was profound, moving, enjoyable, and historic. So I want to share that declaration of commitment with you because I think all of us could sign up to this commitment. We, representatives of the Scottish Religious Leaders Forum, meeting on the holy and historic island of Iona, mark this, the 20th anniversary of the Forum, by restating our commitment to work together. We share this land of Scotland with people of diverse cultures, religions and beliefs. We know that our lives are connected closely to the lives of others around the world and to the earth, our common home. Yet we know that in this beautiful land, many live in poverty, as do millions more around the world, and we recognise that our way of life and overconsumption is causing environmental damage and harm to all. We also acknowledge with sadness the suffering caused by prejudice, discrimination, and war, and recognise that religious discord has at times contributed to this suffering. With all our hearts and humility, we commit to continuing to build good interfaith relations and trust across Scotland and beyond. We also commit to working with others to actively respond to the climate crisis by emphasising the importance of caring for the earth highlighted in our scriptures, by doing our utmost to live sustainably and encouraging our communities to do the same, by joining with others to convince those in positions of authority and influence to act urgently to implement the agreements made at COP. And finally, we commit to walk alongside and listen to local communities across Scotland and beyond that are facing many and diverse challenges, such as poverty, displacement, uncertainty, and disorientation in a time of bewildering change. We share these words on the Isle of Iona, an island that is beautiful and sacred, but with a violent history, and which today is exposed to rising sea levels due to climate change. This island stands as a metaphor for humanity and other life on earth, vulnerable, sacred, and to be cherished and loved, but not abused and exploited. Inspired by this place, we make this declaration. Looking to the ghost of interfaith past, memory and reflection, the sentiments are still critical today. In 2002, there was fear and division being generated. Today, we still see the fearmongers trying to divide us. In 2002, people were aware of the climate crisis. They're even more so now. In 2002, there was poverty, displacement, uncertainty, disorientation, and bewildering change. These are challenges that we are increasingly facing today. Interfaith Scotland, in partnership with others, has been doing its very best to create safe spaces to come together to talk about these challenges and to do what we can together to address them. But as I move onto the ghost of interfaith present, I want to share what I see right now in the world of interfaith engagement in Scotland. So, I'll start the present with the Cratchit family view. The warm, fuzzy, we are together despite the odds view of the present, before I share some of the more challenging aspects of interfaith life in Scotland today. So, the Cratchit family view. Local groups. I'll start with a wee look at local interfaith groups across Scotland. When I began in 2002, there were 4 local interfaith groups in Scotland: Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee and Aberdeen. And now, in 2025, we've gone from 4 to probably in the 20s. The work done across Scotland by these local groups is hugely significant. 2 of the groups have funds, Edinburgh Interfaith Association and Interfaith Glasgow, and the others do all their work in a voluntary capacity. And what an amount of work they do to connect people at the grassroots of the cities, towns and islands of Scotland. Faith communities and membership. And what of the faith communities in the membership of Interfaith Scotland? In the past, there were challenges, fears, things to be overcome as people came together. The Pagan Federation applied for membership, for full membership, and there was little understanding of what that might mean for Interfaith Scotland. Move forward 20 years, and pagans are full members, and I can announce that we hope to have our first Druid full board member joining the board at the AGM. So our present situation with our membership is an interfaith environment in Scotland that is inclusive, welcoming, and based on the diverse faiths we find in Scotland. Government. We continue to be part funded by the Scottish Government, as does Edinburgh and Glasgow, and there is awareness in national and local government that interfaith work is vital for community cohesion. And we're grateful for the support we get and enjoy the partnership working. But not only is interfaith work recognised by government, but in the voluntary sector too. This year, Interfaith Scotland won Charity of the Year. Would be remiss of me not to say that we won Charity of the Year. And this year we moved into new offices, and this year we have appointed a new director. All this looks great, and we can enjoy for a moment our Cratchit family view of the interfaith world of the present. However, just as in Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, the present world was not and is not cosy and inclusive. In Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, one of the central characters, Tiny Tim, is dying, and things need to change for Tim and the Cratchits to survive. So what do I see as I look at Scotland right now? Yes, plenty of warm, friendly, hardworking, dedicated individuals, families, communities and organisations. But in the charity sector, they're struggling with lack of funds, and they face a backdrop of global crisis. The mass displacement of millions of vulnerable human beings, a climate of fear, hatred and division directed at the most vulnerable in our society. A growing climate crisis, rising anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, fear, division, prejudice and hatred. Polarisation, with the far right and the far left yelling at each other. A global mental health crisis that is impacting our young people, and levels of poverty in Scotland that might mirror a Dickensian world. Safe to say, in some areas, our world is not unlike the world of Charles Dickens. Poverty and injustice everywhere. So what about the ghost of interfaith future? In the Christmas Carol, Scrooge sees the error of his ways, is transformed and overcomes his greed and selfishness, and works with the Cratchit family and others to build a better world. The ghost of Christmas future was all about family, community, helping those less fortunate, compassion, love, warmth, working together for the common good. Is that not at the heart of all the faith scriptures of the world? And anyone who's had the pleasure of attending interfaith gatherings feel all of those things. The present situation in interfaith is very much we are sitting at the cosy fire, but there is a harsh, divided world out there, and we need to continue working together to build a better future for everyone. The essence of the story of the Christmas Carol is about transformation. It's about supporting each other, building community and challenging the broken things in society together. Thank you.